More than 50 Liberal staffers are refusing to help the government campaign in next month's high-stakes by-election in Montreal. They say that it is over Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's stance on the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. CBC News has obtained a draft of a letter sent directly to Trudeau laying out their case. And my colleague Raffy Boudjikanian joins me with more. Raffy, you've got the story. You and our colleague Evan Dyer. What can you tell us about what's in this letter?
Catherine, it's essentially a bit of an ultimatum. So this letter was written by more than 50 Liberal staffers in various ministers' offices, and they're mostly Muslim or Arab staffers. Now, they're saying they're unhappy with the government's stance on Gaza. They want to see some changes, and until they see those, they're not going to take part in any further partisan activity, including the laSalle-Emard-Verdun by-election, which they name specifically. So staffers would be called upon as volunteers to go door knocking or make phone calls. They say none of that will be happening. What they'd like to see from the government is what they call a stronger condemnation of what they deem to be Israel's war crimes in the war in Gaza. They also want to see an immediate recognition of Palestinian statehood. We're going to put an excerpt from the letter on your screens, and I'll read it to you as we do that. The letter says, in part, until we are no longer ashamed to tell our communities and families that we are actively campaigning for the Liberal Party, we will be pausing partisan activity. Now, they also say they want to close legal loopholes so that Canada is shipping no more arms to Israel. That's another one of the conditions they've thrown in there.
Now, none of the staffers wanted to speak on camera, but you did hear from some Liberal donors. What are they saying?
Yeah, the staffers effectively told us they're worried about professional repercussions if they do go on the record, and they also don't ultimately want to sink the Liberals' chances in this Montreal race, but they are getting support from the Network 100. That's that group of influential Arab and Muslim donors who had helped the Liberals come to power in 2015, and they were openly supporting the Liberals until last November. That's when they announced in their own letter that they're pulling that support because at the time the government had not started calling for a ceasefire in the conflict. Since then, that's something the government has started doing, but it's not good enough for these donors. Have a listen to part of my chat with Hussein Hamdani.
Look, the genocide is still continuing. There's been no slowdown in that. There hasn't been any real pressure that our government has imposed upon Netanyahu and his extreme right-wing government. Maybe they'll think they can find other donors, but you can't just find 50 staff overnight.
Now, in statements, the Prime Minister's office is telling us that they have been calling for a ceasefire. They're reminding that they are backing the ceasefire deal that was proposed by U.S. President Joe Biden back in June, and they're urging all sides to abide by it, that they're calling for the hostages to be released by Hamas, and and they've also said that they will eventually perhaps recognize a Palestinian state before negotiations with Israel are concluded. The Liberals have also issued a statement. They're saying that Canadians engage in a democratic process for a variety of reasons, and they want Canadians of all stripes to feel safe, included, and welcome within their movement. It's worth noting, though, Catherine, that the NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has been visiting laSalle-Emard-Verdun a lot over the last few weeks, at least some 8 times. He was there last week again, and he actually went to a mosque and met with Muslim community leaders. So that play for votes is really happening in that riding.
Yes, definitely going to be a significant by-election result to watch. Thank you so much for this, Raffy. The CBC's Raffy Boudjikanian.